Good morning. Today we are discussing about the Security Council of the UN. Previous class we were discussing about General Assembly, its composition, powers and functions. Today we discuss about Security Council, its composition, veto power and some of the powers and functions of the Security Council. General Assembly is the biggest organ of the United Nations. The United Nations has 6 organs, and the biggest of all these organs is the General Assembly. All the members of the United Nations are members of the General Assembly. So it is the biggest organ. But Security Council, that is the most powerful organ of the United Nations. Although its strength is not much, it is very powerful. So let's see how the Security Council is composed of. The Security Council is composed of 15 members with 15 member nations, of which 5 are permanent members and 10 are non-permanent members. Thus, the Security Council is composed of 15 members, 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. The permanent members are permanent. That means for lifelong they are the members of the Security Council. Whereas the non-permanent members, they are not permanent. They are elected for a term of 2 years. For 2 years they are the members of the Security Council, whereas the 5 permanent members are lifelong members of the Security Council. And the 5 permanent members are Britain, France, USA, China and Russia. These are the 5 permanent members. Britain, France, America, China and Russia. 5 permanent members. And the 10 non-permanent members. So as the name suggests, non-permanent members, they are not permanent. They say we cannot say the name of the non-permanent members because they are elected for a term of 2 years. After 2 years, all the 10 non-permanent members will change and new 10 non-permanent members will be elected. So the non-permanent members, in order to provide equal representation to all the nations in the Security Council, elections to the non-permanent members of the Security Council is being held on the basis of 4 geographical divisions, not 5, 4 geographical divisions. For the election to the non-permanent members of the Security Council, the entire UN member nations has grouped into 4 categories or 4 groups, divided into 4 groups. These 4 groups are Asian nations and African nations form one group. Latin American countries form another group. West European and other nations form a third group, and East European nations form a 4th group. So this way, all the member nations of the UN has been divided into 4 groups. And from these Afro-Asian nations, 5 members are elected. Or the Afro-Asian nations can represent 5 members, or 5 members can be elected from all the Afro-Asian nations, African and Asian nations. Latin American countries can send 2 representatives. West Europe and other nations can send 2 representatives. And the East European countries can send 1 representative. Thus, altogether 10 members. Afro-Asian nations can elect 5 members. Latin American countries can elect 2 members. West Europe and other nations can elect 2 members. And East European nations can elect 1 member. Thus, 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1. 10 members. So, these 10 members form the non-permanent members of the Security Council, and they are elected for a term of 2 years. These members are not eligible for immediate re-election. After once the term of 2 years is over, then elections are held, and in the election, those members who had been elected or who was the members of the permanent and non-permanent members of the Security Council cannot contest. That means for immediate re-election. After another term, they are eligible, they can contest. But once they had been the member of the Security Council, non-permanent member of the Security Council, and when the next time the election is held, the immediate election is held, then the non-permanent members cannot contest. Okay, that is, non-permanent members are not eligible for immediate re-election, but they are eligible for re-election. Only the condition is not immediate. Consecutive 2 terms is not possible. That is meant by immediate re-election. Consecutive terms they cannot contest and they cannot be elected. So that's all about the composition of the Security Council. 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. The 5 permanent members are Britain, France, USA, Russia and China. These are the 5 permanent members. Then we will discuss about the veto power. Decisions on procedural matters are taken on the basis of majority's opinion. In General Assembly also, these decisions are taken on the basis of majority's opinion. In all the organs, decisions are taken on the basis of majority's opinion only. So same way Security Council also, they also take the decision on the basis of majority's opinion. And in procedural matters, if a decision is to be taken, then minimum 9 members of the Security Council must support that decision. If a resolution is to be passed, it should get the support of 9 members. It should have a majority of 9 members. And among the 9 members, it is compulsory that all the 5 permanent members should cast an affirmative vote. That means the majority of 9 members must have the vote of all the 5 permanent members. And if all the 5 permanent members are not casting their vote in favor of a decision, the decision cannot be taken. If 14 members, when a decision is to be taken, the matter will be put to vote, and at the time of voting, out of 15 members, 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members are there, total 15 members. Of the 15 members, 14 members are casting their vote in favor of the decision, then it is having a very big majority. But suppose the one member who is casting the vote against the decision of the Security Council is one of the permanent members, then that decision cannot be taken. Because in order to take a decision or in order to pass a resolution, it must get the support of all the 5 permanent members. That is compulsory. In that case, we can see if it is so, in order to pass a resolution, the support of all the 5 permanent members are required. What happens if a permanent member is casting a vote against the decision? A resolution cannot be passed. Decision of the House can be cancelled. Decision of the House can be cancelled. So, such power of a permanent member is called veto power. A single permanent member's power, or with the decision of a single permanent member, the decision of the entire council, that means the Security Council, can be cancelled. Therefore, the right of a permanent member to cancel the decision of the Security Council is called veto power. The definition to veto power is a negative vote of a permanent member in the Security Council is called veto power. A negative vote of a permanent member in the Security Council is veto power. Or the right of a permanent member to cast a negative vote is called veto power. What happens if a permanent member casts a negative vote? If a permanent member casts a negative vote, then the decision become inactive or the invalid. The decision of the House or the resolution of the House becomes invalid. It cannot take the resolution or it cannot take the decision or pass the resolution. So this power of permanent member to cast a vote, negative vote, is called veto power. But in the case of non-permanent members, is not applicable. In the case of non-permanent members, the only thing is, along with the 5 permanent members, at least 4 of the non-permanent members are supporting the decision can be taken or the resolution can be passed. So this power of a permanent member to cast a negative vote is called veto power. So veto power is an important power, a very high power exercised by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. So that is why the permanent members are very powerful. But it is not compulsory that in order to take a decision or a resolution, pass a resolution, 5 permanent members affirmative vote is not compulsory always. Why it is not compulsory always? The situation is that suppose at the time of taking a decision or passing a resolution, some of the permanent members of the Security Council is absent, then it is not possible to get affirmative vote of all the 5 permanent members, because one of the permanent member is absent on the day when the resolution was passed or the resolution was put to vote. So absence cannot be counted as a negative vote. That's why so many examples are there. There was some conflict in the Security Council between USA and Russia. Much conflicts were there during the time of Cold War period. USA and Russia were not having a good relationship. The mutual relationship between USA and Russia was very bad. So many of the cases, the decisions taken or the opinion of USA was rejected by Russia, and the opinion of Russia was rejected by USA also. In such case, the Security Council found it very difficult to pass resolution. So purposely they kept, situations are there, purposely they kept the resolution to be passed on a day or on a date when this USA or the Russia was absent. Mostly, these four of the permanent members, among the five, four of the permanent members were having the same opinion. Russia being a communist nation, the other permanent members were against the decision or opinion of Russia. China was also a communist nation, but that was not a very big issue. But Russia, the other nations were against Russia. That is why they waited for an opportunity to pass a resolution when Russia is absent from the proceedings. And on such days, matters were put to vote, and Russia is absent. That is why nobody is opposing the resolution. So thus, easily they passed the resolutions. So absence is not counted as a negative vote. Okay, that's all about the veto power. The next powers and functions of the Security Council. Powers and functions, we are not going, many powers and functions are given in the book. I am mentioning just some of the important powers and functions of the Security Council. One of the important powers of the Security Council is function. One of the important functions of the Security Council is to maintain international peace and security in accordance with the principle of the United Nations. To do all the things to maintain peace and security in the world in accordance with, that means following the principles of the United Nations. That's one of the function of the Security Council. Another function is investigate on situations or investigate on matters and situations in which there is a threat to international peace. If there is a situation prevailing which may pose a threat to the international peace, then it is the responsibility of the Security Council to conduct an investigation on the matter and what is there actually a danger for international peace, and if any danger is there for the peaceful atmosphere in the world, then to take necessary actions or necessary measures to avoid such situations. So find out or investigate whether there is any situation that is harmful to the international peace, and if any such situation is prevailing, find remedial measures to stop such a situation which may harm the international peace. And in the remedial measures, some of the remedial measures are also mentioned. It can take action against an aggressor. Aggressor means anyone, a member nation, who is not following the principles of the UN, who is attacking the other nation. Attacking, that is actually a reason that will harm the peaceful atmosphere. Attack, war, okay. So, if such a nation who is attacking another nation is called an aggressor, to take military action against an aggressor, that is a power of the Security Council. So it is security powers function that to find out whether any situation is prevailing which may cause harm to the peaceful atmosphere. And if any such situation is prevailing, any such a harmful situation is prevailing which may cause for the peaceful atmosphere in the world, then find out remedial measures to take remedial measures to stop such a situation. And in remedial measures, it can take military action against such aggressor. Secondly, it can ask the other nations to join with the Security Council in taking action against the aggressor. Joining the Security Council, that means Security Council can impose sanctions against an aggressor. A sanction I mentioned in the previous class when we were learning about causes of the Second World War. cause of the Second World War mentioned when Japan invaded Manchuria, Japan invaded China. China appealed to the League of Nations and asked the League of Nations to impose sanctions against Japan. Sanction means take actions against Japan. That means as a group, member nations are taking action against an aggressor. That is called sanction. That may not be using any military power, maybe financial, economic sanctions or trade embargo. Economic sanction means the other nations are cutting off their economic activities with an aggressor, thus isolating such aggressor. That is called economic sanctions. This way, the Security Council can ask the member nations to take sanctions against aggressor. Okay. Some of the steps the Security Council can take against an aggressor. It can impose sanctions against aggressor. It can initiate a military action, military attack against an aggressor. Okay. So these are some of the two of the main measures taken by the Security Council to stop such aggression. Then another important function of some more important functions of the Security Council are: one is to elect the judges of the International Court of Justice. The judges of the International Court of Justice is elected by the General Assembly and the Security Council. So Security Council also participate in the election of the judges of Security Council. And thus we can say Security Council participate in the election of the judges of International Court of Justice. Okay. Election of the judges of International Court of Justice. Then another function is to recommend the General Assembly to make or admit new members to the United Nations. Any peace-loving nation can become the member of the United Nations, and a nation can become the member of the United Nations only by the Security Council. When the Security Council recommends the General Assembly to admit a new member to the United Nations, the General Assembly is admitting. Thus, new nation become a member of the United Nations. So thus the Security Council can recommend the General Assembly to admit new member to the United Nations. So admission of the new member to the United Nations is done only on the recommendation of the Security Council. Another function of the Security Council, it recommends the General Assembly to appoint the Secretary General. Secretary General is also appointed by the General Assembly, but it's also on the recommendation of the Security Council to perform functions in strategic areas, trusteeship functions in strategic areas. That is another function of the Security Council. A strategic area means trusteeship function means a trusteeship council. That is an organ of the organ of the United Nations, and this trusteeship council is not a relevant organ. It is not functioning, but it is not having much power and not having much things to do, because after First World War, many of the regions which were not able to run their own administration were helped by the trusteeship council. Trusteeship council was just helping the areas which were not able to run their own government, but gradually they learned how to run their own government, and when once they became able to run their own government, the trusteeship council left these trust areas and they became an independent region. So at present there is no regions under the trusteeship council. So trusteeship council is, we can say it is an inactive organ, not having much functions at present. But it can perform, the Security Council can perform trusteeship functions in strategic areas. Strategic area means some important functions. The Security Council performs some of the trusteeship functions. Okay. Okay, these are some of the main functions of the Security Council. So we have learned how the Security Council is composed of, then the veto power of the Security Council, and the functions and the powers of the Security Council. That's for today. You read this lesson and you learn it well. These three topics you learn very well. Okay. Some 3 or 4 functions you need to learn. Some important 3 or 4 functions. Okay. That's all. Thank you.